What if I told you that one single family, not kings, not emperors, not warriors, but bankers, quietly purchased an entire continent? They didn't conquer nations with swords. They conquered them with gold. They didn't storm castles, they built them. They didn't beg for power. They lent it at interest. And when the most powerful pope in history knelt to pray, it was their money that built the very altar beneath his knees. This is the story of the Medici, the family that bought the Renaissance, owned the Vatican, and shaped the modern world you live in right now. And most people have never heard the full truth. Welcome back to History's Echo, where the buried truth rises again. Every empire has a shadow, every fortune has a secret, and every story you were told left something out. This is where we find it. In the narrow, filthy streets of 14th century Florence, Italy, a family of wool traders was quietly laying the foundation of the most powerful financial empire the world had ever seen. They were not noble, they were not royal. They had no army, no titles, no claims to any throne. They were the Medici, and they understood something that kings never did. Money doesn't just buy things, money buys people, and people run the world. It began with Giovanni di Bicci de' Medici in 1397. While the rest of Europe was tearing itself apart in feudal wars and plagues, Giovanni opened a bank. But this was no ordinary bank. Giovanni had studied the oldest game in civilization, lending, and he perfected it. He offered services to merchants, to the clergy, and most importantly, to the Catholic Church itself. At a time when charging interest was technically a sin under church law, Giovanni found creative ways to disguise profits as fees and currency exchange differences. He wasn't just bending the rules, he was rewriting them in ink that smelled like gold. Within just a few years, the Medici Bank became the official financial institution of the Vatican. Think about that for a moment. The most powerful religious organization on the planet, the entity that crowned kings and excommunicated emperors, was banking with the Medici. Every tithe, every donation, every tax collected from the faithful across Europe passed through Medici hands. Giovanni didn't need a throne. He had something better. He had the ledger. But Giovanni was wise enough to stay in the shadows. He dressed modestly, he spoke softly. He told his sons, "Stay out of the public eye. Never show off your wealth." He knew that in Florence, where envy was sharper than any blade, being too visible was a death sentence. So he built his empire quietly, branch by branch, city by city, from Rome to Venice, from London to Geneva. By the time he died in 1429, the Medici Bank was the largest financial institution in all of Europe. Then came his son, Cosimo de Medici. And Cosimo had a very different philosophy. Where Giovanni hid, Cosimo shone. Cosimo understood that money alone wasn't enough. You needed loyalty, you needed culture. You needed the people to love you, or at least to depend on you. So Cosimo began spending his fortune in a way no banker ever had before. He funded artists, he built churches, he commissioned libraries, he paid for hospitals. He transformed Florence from a dirty medieval trading city into the cultural capital of the Western world. But here's the secret most history books won't emphasize. Every single act of generosity was also an act of strategy. When Cosimo built a church, the church owed him. When he funded an artist, that artist became his propagandist. When he opened a library, scholars flocked to Florence and spread the Medici name across Europe. Cosimo was running the most sophisticated public relations campaign in history, 500 years before the concept even existed. And when his rivals, the Albizzi family, tried to exile him from Florence in 1433, Cosimo simply waited. He had already placed his allies in every key position. He had already lent money to every family that mattered. Within a year, the people of Florence begged him to return. The Albizzi were exiled instead. Cosimo came home not as a banker, but as the uncrowned king of Florence. He never held an official title. He never needed one. Every decision in Florence passed through his study first. Under Cosimo, the Medici Bank expanded to 11 branches across Europe. They financed the English crown during the Wars of the Roses. They lent money to the Burgundian dukes. They funded papal elections. Yes, papal elections. The Medici didn't just serve the church. They began choosing who would lead it. When Cosimo died in 1464, the city of Florence gave him a title never before granted to any citizen, Pater Patriae, Father of the Nation. But the Medici story was far from over. His grandson, Lorenzo de Medici, known to history as Lorenzo the Magnificent, took the family's power to heights that would have terrified even Cosimo. Lorenzo was not just a banker. He was a poet, a philosopher, a diplomat, and a political genius. He turned Florence into the undisputed center of the Renaissance. He personally funded Leonardo da Vinci, Sandro Botticelli, and Michelangelo. That's right. Without the Medici, the Sistine Chapel ceiling might never have been painted. The statue of David might never have been carved. The artistic explosion that defines Western civilization was, in many ways, purchased by a single family's bank account. But Lorenzo's path was not without blood. In 1478, a rival family, the Pazzi, launched a conspiracy to murder Lorenzo and his brother Giuliano during Easter Mass in the Florence Cathedral. Giuliano was stabbed 19 times and died on the cathedral floor. Lorenzo survived, wounded, and barricaded himself in the sacristy. The city erupted. The Florentine people, loyal to the Medici, hunted down the conspirators. The Pazzi were dragged through the streets. Some were hanged from the windows of the government palace. The Archbishop of Pisa, who had supported the plot, was hanged in his full clerical robes, an act so shocking it reverberated across all of Europe. Lorenzo had survived, and his enemies had learned a terrifying lesson. You do not strike at the Medici and live. But perhaps the most extraordinary chapter of Medici power came after Lorenzo's death in 1492. His son Giovanni was groomed for the church, not out of piety, but out of pure strategic calculation. Giovanni de Medici became a cardinal at the age of 13, and in 1513 he became Pope Leo X. A Medici was now sitting on the throne of St. Peter. The family of wool traders from Florence now controlled both the bank and the altar. They held the gold and the gospel. Pope Leo X famously said, "God has given us the papacy. Let us enjoy it." And enjoy it he did. He spent lavishly on art, on feasts, on wars, on political alliances. He needed more money than even the Vatican's vast treasury could provide. So he expanded the sale of indulgences, certificates that promised forgiveness of sins in exchange for cash. This practice became so widespread, so blatant, and so corrupt that it triggered a response nobody expected. In 1517, a German monk named Martin Luther nailed his 95 Theses to a church door in Wittenberg. The Protestant Reformation had begun, and it was, in many ways, a direct response to Medici excess. The Medici didn't just buy the Renaissance. They accidentally fractured Christianity itself over 3 centuries. And the Medici produced 4 popes, 2 queens of France, Catherine de Medici and Marie de Medici, and countless cardinals, dukes, and political leaders. They pioneered double-entry bookkeeping, the letter of credit, and the holding company structure that modern corporations still use today. They funded the science of Galileo and the art of Raphael. They mapped the stars and financed exploration. And yet, by the 18th century, the family was gone. The last Medici, Anna Maria Luisa, died in 1743 with no heirs. She left the entire Medici art collection to the city of Florence, with one condition: none of it could ever be removed from the city. To this day, the Uffizi Gallery, one of the most visited museums on Earth, exists because of her final wish. The Medici began with nothing. They rose through intelligence, cunning, and an almost supernatural understanding of how money moves the world. They didn't just witness the Renaissance, they engineered it. They didn't just participate in history, they purchased it, shaped it, and left it behind for all of us to inherit. The Medici understood a truth that echoes across centuries. Power is not always held by the one who wears the crown. Sometimes it belongs to the one who pays for it. Their banks are closed, their bloodline is gone, but the world they built, the art, the science, the systems of finance, still surrounds you. Every museum you visit, every bank you trust, every masterpiece you admire, carries a whisper of their name. History forgets many things, but it never forgets the ones who paid for it. This has been History's Echo. If this story stirred something in you, subscribe now. Because the next secret we uncover might change everything you thought you knew.